All right, guys, welcome back. And we're going to take a look at what are the next steps as far as building out our module for our 2012 Camaro steering wheel swap. So last time we spoke, we had finished the resistance ladder for the audio. We had finished the resistance ladder for the cruise control. And, we were testing it out. We were making sure everything was flowing. What I've done here is I've used this software called KeyCAD. What do we do with KeyCAD? Well, we can design ourselves PCBs and actually get them printed out by a third party. Now, I'm not going to go into how to use KeyCAD. I'm not going to go into how to actually get the PCBs that you designed and sent over to the manufacturer to have them printed. Perhaps that's something I can go into on a different date, but there's plenty of videos out there. What I just want to show you guys is the different components that I've built out and how they all formally interact. So I'm going to zoom in here, and we're going to start with this one right here, which is the brains of our operation. This is our ESP32, the dev board that we're going to use. And what you'll notice is that on either side of it, we have two ULN 2003s. Each one of these, one on the right controls the audio, and here are our individual resistors for our audio control resistance ladder. On the left side, we have our ULN 2003 and our 4 resistors for our cruise control. Okay? We have a couple other small things here that I'm going to highlight. Here is our pull-down resistor. This is the one that allows us to measure the resistance coming out of the cruise control. On the right side here, we have our UART LIN module. Okay, that's got our RX pin, our TX pin, our ground, and our LIN coming in and out. Over here, this is a buck converter. Now, I didn't really discuss this with you guys because every time we used the ESP32, it gained its power through the USB. Obviously, we're not going to have a USB in the car powering the ESP32. So what we need to do is use this thing called a buck converter, which takes our voltage from 12 to 14, right, depending on where you are in the vehicle and whether or not you're starting it, and it drives it down to 5. Okay, so this takes us down to 5 volts, and if you notice, our V out here loops around and goes to our ESP32 5 volt in. So that's going to allow us to power the ESP32 independently and not needing our USB or a laptop. This switch here, this single switch, single pole, double throw. Actually, I don't even think it needs to be double throw, but I put it in just in case. This allows us to actually actually physically flip between on and off for our alternate controls. Finally, we have our 10-pin connectors. We have one up here. This is where our dashboard on our 2012 is going to plug directly into our module. And then over here, we have the same type of header, right? 10-pin header. And this is going to allow us to plug into the 2016 clock spring that we're going to use in the vehicle. So those are all of the components. Oh, actually, and one more thing. I have this one 4-pin socket here. This 4-pin socket allows us to actually have, if we choose to not go with the alternate controls, we have an output for each one of those that we could use those buttons for something in the future. Perhaps we plug it into, I'll make it up, something like underglow LEDs or something of that nature. We can utilize this to have those. Perhaps we have a ground signal and a red, blue, green, and we're controlling something else, and we can manipulate those based on the up, down, left, right keys in the steering wheel. We'll just keep that as an option, and that's how I designed it. So this is our schematic. If we jump over to the PCB, what I decided to do was try to actually have this in a PCB that there's a case that is sold online by on Amazon for the Arduino Mega And I figured that would be a pretty solid case in order to have this in. So what you see here is we have our ESP32 over here. We have our UART module here. We have our buck converter here. And then on either side, we have our two big 10-pin connectors. We have the 4-pin connector here for the alt controls. We have a 2-pin connector for our 12-volt power and our ground. That, again, we're going to have to source. That's going to allow us to power the ESP32. And finally, we have our 3-pin. Now, this is our physical switch that we're going to use to flip the alt controls on and off. So once this is all done, you can go through the exporting. You can go through the work to send it off to. I use JLC PCB. But once that's all and good, you wait a couple weeks, and lo and behold, I actually have a couple boards here. Now ignore this. This is for a separate project I'm working on. I'll take that out. But what you see here are 3 different boards. Why are there 3 different boards here? There's 3 different boards here because I've gone through multiple prototypes on this. So the very first prototype I created was simply all driven by these JST connectors. The problem with that is that the JST connectors then have to go into kind of pigtail harnesses that would then go into the connector on the Camaro's main body harness. The second problem with that is that particular connector for the main body harness on the Camaro does not have a corresponding wired male connector. The male only exists in a header. So it took a little while, but it finally clicked to me, hey, let me just replace these and use that connector here on the actual board. Okay, then what you'll notice is there's only one real major difference between these two here, and this is actually upside down. Upside down? There we go. You'll notice there's only one major difference between these two, and that's over here. We have this switch and no switch here. Why? Because at the time, I thought to myself, oh, I'm going to have everything be done digitally. And what I realized is flipping back and forth between alt controls and not alt controls all needed to be done by taking the module out of the car and then putting it to your computer, updating your code. What I realized was, you know what? Let's actually just do it digitally. And if we just do it, I'm sorry, not digitally, physically. And if we just do it physically, then everything becomes easy. We can just flip this switch. So some of these things had to be designed on their own, right? This did not exist in the actual KiCad library. But what I can show you guys is how this sort of manifests once we start putting it together. So what we have here is my switch, and you'll notice I put these little pins here. Let me see if I can zoom in for you guys. That's a little bit better. So we'll set this aside. This is our latest. So if we look, we have this switch. This switch fits into 2 little holes that we designed when we made the footprint, and we're going to put it right in over here. Okay, now obviously it's not soldered in, but that's essentially how it's going to go. When I pull out my headers here, we're going to see that. Now I'll take this switch off for now because it will end up falling, but here is our header, right? And this is the exact same one that exists in the clock spring. You'll notice here is the clock spring, here is the header. Exact same shape. Here's the other side. Again, exact same shape. So anyway, we'll set that aside. And basically what happens is, if you design it correctly, we have these 2 little nubs on the back that provide the physical support, and we'll fit our pins in. And we pop that in. And, again, it's a little loose now, but once it gets soldered, it's in. And we'll see that we can have these again on both sides. Now, what I've done for the users here, or anyone who ends up getting their hands on this, is I put on the bottom here a little text that says this goes to the 2012 dashboard. Over here it says to the 2016 steering wheel. So you know which way this ultimately needs to be oriented. And so, again, once we start to put this together, we can have all of our components actually fitting in this, and ultimately they will get soldered in. So here's our ESP32. The ESP32 would be press fit into, I pulled this up a couple times, so my pins may be getting a little kooky, like just now. You got to be careful if you're taking this in and out. So let's try plugging this in. You got to be careful, because if you squeeze too hard and your fingers are on the back, you're going to get stabbed. Okay. All right. So again, you can see it's pretty much plug and play. All we need to do is then solder all these points in, on each of the corresponding components, and then that's how it will end up working. Now, again, I have this one. This was one of my original prototypes, but again, it was all done with JST connectors, which I realized were very inefficient and would cause a big headache for me downstream. So I'm going to go with this board. Again, I redesigned it to fit these headers on to make life a bit easier. So, yeah, that is going to be the next step. So ultimately, all we'll need to do once we get in the car is we have to source some 12-volt power and ground from the car. That's easy, right? Anyone who's ever done any mods on a car will be able to figure that out. Then all we'll do is we'll unplug the harness from the car. We'll plug it in right here. And then on this side, let me just make sure I got these sides right. Sorry. This side is the part that goes to the the main body harness in the 2012. This side, we'll have to make one little quick harness that's going to connect our, because obviously now we have a male side and we have a male side. We'll just have to make a double-ended harness that's going to plug these two together. I'll probably make it long so that this can be tucked nice behind the dashboard. But ultimately, it will go into the back of the clock spring. And then the clock spring will be able to plug directly into the steering wheel with no problems, no modifications to the steering wheel itself, and hopefully everything will work flawlessly. And then, when we get there, we just have to find a way to source some always-on power for the heated steering wheel. It's very likely that I may end up just creating a splitter, and when I source the power for this board, I will just split it between, if this is my power coming in, I'll just Y, some of the power into here, some of the power into here, because I believe, yep, this has its own fuse here, which is 7.5 amps. So, yeah, that's it. I will take you guys into the car the next time, and we're going to get to testing this out and kind of wrapping this project up. So, and just like that, we have a fully completed module. So ESP32, UART, buck converter, 2 ULNs to manage our resistance ladder, our connectors, and our resistance ladders. One for the audio, one for the cruise control, our pull down resistor, and that's it. So it's been a journey. I will say that what we will do at some point, I will put this in this case, cut some holes so it fits nicely. You'll see that there's a plug on this side, a plug on this side. I have my switch, and I have my 2 JST connectors. And ultimately, that will be it. All right, well, I appreciate you guys sticking around. I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.
Good job. Bye.